Alex Pearce's collision with Darcy Byrne-Jones has the footy world frothing. Should running with the flight of the ball be coached out of players? Would that be possible? Should the AFL legislate against it to protect players from themselves? And what role should the media play in creating an environment when AFL players are comfortable to not put themselves in harm's way and not be pilloried? Can the AFL tweak its match review matrix so there is room to move with these types of cases? As we hit the halfway point of the season, the Dockers have momentum and sit on the verge of the 8, with several teams teetering above them. A more competitive West Coast, meanwhile, is flashing a light at the end of a long, dark tunnel. Welcome to the West Sport Show. We are brought to you by TabTouch. Got the touch? Download the TabTouch app today. Imagine what you could be buying instead. For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelponline.org.au. G'day, Cod. How are you?
Oh, marvellous. How are you?
Good. Another big weekend of AFL and another just headlines everywhere, but notably the Alex Pearce collision with Darcy Byrne-Jones. And look, the incident is pending. This evening it will be determined at the tribunal, but it does open up some bigger issues around that sort of a collision in footy, Cod.
Yeah, it does. And I've been big on this for a while. Back in 2021, I wrote a column saying it was time for the AFL to ban the players from running with the flight of the ball in marking contests because too many players were getting knocked out. And I'm still really firm in that belief that you can change the rules to prevent players from having to feel like they need to do this. And that would mean that the player who's then running at them doesn't clean them up and get suspended, because at the moment, the only player who is getting suspended is the one who is running towards the football, leading up at the ball, like we have been seeing for 100 years. And the player who comes back is always the one that gets hurt. So if we want to rule out concussions and big concussions, the only way to change it is to stop players from doing it. And the only way to stop them is to legislate against it.
So it can't be, let's just say it can't be coached out of them. So I think Justin Longmuir was asked about this, and he says, I just don't think it's possible because players will always want to impact the contest and do the right thing by their team. How does the legislation work, though? It just seems a massive grey area for me. How would it possibly work? Is it as simple as if you're running with the flight of the footy, you are liable?
Law 18.5.2D of the current rules relating to marking contests says a player will concede a free kick if he makes contact to an opposition player from front on and whose sole objective is not to contest or spoil the mark. Right? So if you just remove the second half of that and makes a player will concede a free kick if they make contact to an opposition player from front on, then players aren't going to be running with the flight of the ball, because this is actually quite a new phenomenon. It's in the last 30 years where we've seen Jonathan Brown and Wayne Carey and Nick Riewoldt make this a thing. In the past, it was always lead up at the ball, lead up at the ball, lead up at the ball. Then Pagan's Paddock came in and Wayne Carey figured out, hey, if you get all the way up the ground, you can run back. But Carey was smart enough to understand that North would kick the ball high to a pair of stationary players and he'd go and jump into them. They'd be the 10 bowling pins and 10-pin bowling pins, and he'd be the bowling ball and knock them all over. Now it's a demolition derby with both cars coming towards each other, and that's where the damage is being done. So the Darcy Byrne-Jones one is a little bit different because he wasn't necessarily running. He turned around and took a couple of steps. But in general, if you look at the big ones over the years where a player has been concussed, they're charging with no idea what's around them, and we're always going to get knocked out. And I think that's what we have to prevent. We have to stop the player from feeling compelled to do it, and the kicker thinking that's an option I can kick to, and then the coaches would force the player to stand in a different spot so the kick wouldn't take place in the first place. So
I've been arguing this for a couple of years now. I think the media has a big role. We've got a big role to play in this, and that is it's hard not to lionise a player running back with the flight of the footy. We've played footy and we know there's situations where you do think twice about it because there's damage coming your way. There's danger coming your way. But I think in the past, players, let's be honest, players who, in inverted commas, are taking a few short steps have been pilloried for doing so. But I think we need to get that out of the language to realise that you're better out there for the next 3 weeks than not. Absolutely. And if you do put yourself in harm's way, there's every chance you are going to be concussed and subbed out for however long it takes. So I think it's a really unusual area, isn't it? It's something that it feels like it's going to be hard to legislate against, but I think it's worth the conversation at the very least.
Yeah, if you legislate against the running with the flight for to take a mark, if you make contact with another player, then you would see the examples that have been the horrible ones disappear. So the big ones when you look at it over the years, Jordan Lewis running with the flight for Hawthorn, Jared Harbrow coming in the opposite direction, Harbrow cleans him up. If Lewis wasn't running with the flight of the ball, he doesn't get destroyed like that. Brad Ebert's last game for Port Adelaide, ran with the flight of the ball, got knocked out by Jack Rewalt, who was coming up towards the footy. Ebert never plays again. One of Paddy McCartan's early concussions was running with the flight of the ball, got smashed. We know what happened to him. His career eventually ended due to concussion. Jonathan Brown against Geelong in 2011 runs 40 metres with the flight of the ball, pack coming the opposite direction, elbow to the head from the pack accidentally. He was never the same ever again. Daniel Venables was running blind rather than with the flight of the ball, but with the ball was coming from over his shoulder, didn't know it was coming the opposite direction, career over. Liam Picken running without being able to see what's coming in the opposite direction in the marking contest, career over. Peter Fawkes, when he played for Fremantle, broken jaw, multiple facial fractures from running with the flight of the ball. They're massive injuries. So there's no benefit really to the player other than being lauded for taking that mark. You might get a goal here and there, but the risk is not worth the reward. And the only way to protect players from these concussions and these career-ending injuries is to say this can't happen anymore. And there is an option to it, and people will say this is ridiculous, but we've got to protect the players from themselves.
So, devil's advocate here, if I take it one step further, what happens about our favourite part of the game, the high mark, the specky, with the knee in the back of the head?
Yeah, I think that's a little bit different. In fact, I think that's very different because the knee to the back of the head doesn't always happen when you fly for that mark. It can be on the shoulder, it can be in the middle of the back, and it's a technique thing that players actually practice. You go to training and you see the coach put on the gigantic padding on his back, and they practice it. They do not practice running with the flight of the ball and having someone running in the opposite direction. There is zero practice at training of the technique that is required to protect yourself in that situation. Whereas the high mark, they practice it over and over and over again. And players don't go up there trying to knee someone in the head. They go up there trying to take the mark in whatever technique they can, but it's not a deliberate act where they're going there. If someone's running with the flight of the ball, you've got no control. Alex Pearce has no control over what Darcy Byrne-Jones is doing. It's not a still person that you can jump on. He's trying to work out, is the ball, am I going to be able to take the mark? If I'm not, oh my God, I'm going to run into him. How am I going to do something to not kill him? Because that's the concern at the moment. And we're going to see at the tribunal in about 3 hours' time what the argument is. But the person who is running towards the ball, Tony Lockett always led up at the ball. Jason Dunstall always led up at the ball. Matthew Lloyd always led up at the ball. The leading up at the ball has been what we've been brought up on. We haven't learnt as an industry yet what to do when someone's running back at you and you know you're going to hit them, but they don't know you're going to hit them.
So it feels like it's let off or 3 weeks, right? So again, we have this matrix. We have careless, we have intentional. Do we need a reckless? Do we need to refine this matrix? I mean, they flagged that they will at the end of the year, but it seems like there's just no wriggle room.
Yeah, that's the real problem with the laws. Well, they had reckless, they had careless, they had reckless, and they had intentional. Reckless. And they removed reckless because of the lawyers. The lawyers were arguing what was careless and what was reckless. What's the fine line in between? Whereas there's a big difference between careless and intentional. I just think you need to be able to go to the tribunal tonight. Alex Pearce should be able to argue 3 down to 1.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I don't think it should be a hard and fast 3 because he can't argue it wasn't high contact. He can't argue it wasn't severe contact. So all he can argue is he wasn't careless.
That's right. That's it for him.
Now, if he's able to argue that there was an accidental and that, yes, I braced in the end to protect myself from getting knocked out, therefore that knocked out Darcy Byrne-Jones, I reckon people would live with 1 week there.
But there is no room for them to
do that.
Yeah. So again, we find ourselves in this all or nothing situation.
I think I'll be really interesting to see what happens tonight because I think there is an argument they can put forward to win this and get it overturned. I think they can say that if you look at Pearce's right arm, it's hand out. It's not a closed fist. It's a hand out and slowly around the body where he's reaching around to grab Byrne-Jones. His left arm is quite limp. He could have put it out to spoil, but he would have punched Byrne-Jones in the face. So I think what he can say is at the last second, he did everything with his body possible to avoid hitting Byrne-Jones with the force that it would have been from 1 step further back. So that's the reason why he wasn't careless. He took care to try to protect him in some way, and the contact was inevitable. And unfortunately, the concussion was inevitable because he was running towards him. That's the argument I'd be mounting if I was them.
So, big game against Gold Coast this week. He's going to be super important to that contest. But he's not the only player. He's not the only player who's important to that contest. Luke Jackson, once again, for the second week in a row, was arguably Fremantle's best player. He's really loving that number one ruck role. Where are they at now with Sean Darcy? Because he made the coach's job a little harder and a little easier, perhaps, at the same time last week. I mean, you don't want to mess with that balance that they've struck at the moment.
No, I wouldn't be messing with the balance they've got at the moment. But Justin did say that Sean Darcy, if he got through training today, which he did, and pulls up well tomorrow, which we have to find out still.
Well, last week it was the same, wasn't it?
Yep.
He didn't pull up well. Yeah.
He looked good though today. I thought he moved freely today at training. So I'd be surprised if he trained well last Saturday. They said and now he's trained well again today. So I would have thought he should be through the worst of it now.
Yeah.
The indication was that they felt that this
He'll
was
play
a game.
if he gets through.
They said this was a game where under the horses for courses scenario they talked about, where you're coming up against Jared Witts, who's a lot taller than Luke Jackson and is a big body who doesn't necessarily jump himself, that maybe Sean Darcy is really suited to rucking against Jared Witts, and this would be a game where they'd like to take two in. It's a big call because I can also argue that Luke Jackson could destroy Jared Witts on the ground just jumping into him a lot. So it'll be intriguing to see what they do. I wouldn't play Sean Darcy this week. I can understand him playing him in the waffle this week, and then next week is the bye, so he gets a full week off. They then get North Melbourne into a 5-day break into Essendon. I reckon the ideal scenario for Sean Darcy is to come back for that Essendon game without playing the previous weekend, so that Luke Jackson would be coming off a 5-day break, so wouldn't be able to ruck really, really well in that off a 5-day break. Darcy might have that weekend off, be fresh, and then come in and be trained up. I don't think they'll do that, but I think that's an option that would work.
Big patch of games coming up from Fremantle on the verge of the 8, and there's some shaky teams in the 8, including my boys Hawthorn, who have a really tough couple of matches coming up. So they're thereabouts, Fremantle, and I think everything's sort of come together a bit in the last 3 weeks. If you include the Collingwood game, apart from the efficiency going inside 50, it's been a pretty good patch for them. Yeah,
it has. I think we've learned a lot about them. They've tried 4 tall defenders. That didn't work. So Josh Draper goes back. So now we know they should be a 3 tall defender team rather than 4. They've tried 2 ruckmen and 3 tall forwards. That didn't work. They need to be 1 ruckman and either 2 tall forwards and a forward ruck, or 1 ruckman and 3 talls. So they can't have the 8 big blokes in the team. That's not going to work. I think we know that now. Their midfielders tried a few different combinations at different points. They've had a lot of injuries and a lot of long-term injuries when you consider what Darcy went through and what Fife and Walters and O'Driscoll and Hayden Young have all been through as well. So the injury, and Jager O'Meara also on top of that. So they've had a lot of blokes who are out for extended periods, which means they have to give games to blokes for a long time, and they start to become good because they're adjusting to the different
One of
level
those
of footy.
success stories, well, not necessarily midfield, but going back, was Cooper Simpson.
Yes, he was.
So he's been fantastic at halfback for them. Lost him in the first few minutes of the game with that shoulder injury. He's going to be out for 10 weeks minimum. So what do they do now? I mean, this is crucial for them.
I think Bailey Banfield was the one that went
Yeah,
back
he went
last
back
week.
and did a pretty good job.
Yeah, so the options that they've got, because Brandon Walker's another one who's on that long-term injury list with 10 weeks, and then you add Cooper Simpson to it with 10 more weeks, so these guys aren't coming back. Banfield went back. He doesn't have a spot in the forward line because that forward line's going really, really well, so he's not going to knock out Dudley, he's not going to knock out Frederick, he's not going to knock out Murphy Reid or Switkowski at the moment, and he's not tall. So there's your 7 forwards. He's not in the midfield brigade. So if he's able to handle going back, which he did quite well on the weekend, then that's his most likely spot because they don't have too many other guys who can do it.
The only other option, I suppose, is the subs vest to come in late and impact as a forward if possible. But
or they can also say, Corey Wagner, you've been a backman. You then went into the midfield. Nathan O'Driscoll is now healthy again. Nathan Fife is nearly healthy again. So those 2 guys will be coming to push back into the midfield at some point. And then they could say Wagner goes back to defence. One of those 2 comes into the midfield, and then it works from there. So they've got some options, but I reckon this week it would be the most likely scenario would be Banfield goes back, unless O'Driscoll comes in, and then potentially Wagner goes back.
Yeah, up the road, West Coast, a good performance for a half. Probably should have been in front at half time, to be honest, and then got blown out of the water a bit in the last second half, which is it happens in Adelaide. I liked what I saw.
It certainly happens in Adelaide. That's not a happy hunting ground for them.
No, we've got a serious injury to Jake Quartermain now. So Jack Williams probably comes back in this week. They'll have to. Oscar probably stays forward now. I say he's looked okay the last couple of weeks, and you'll leave Sandy Brock, who's done a good job in defence. Harry Edwards, perhaps. Maybe Bazzo gets a run in the near future. So there's a few decisions to make there. I feel like it's official. They have gone past bottoming out. I think they're through the other side. There could be, if the injury list mounts, there could be a few in the back half of the year, but I feel like the competitive edge is back, at least with West Coast. And, it was an 11-goal loss in the end, but that would have been 100 points a year earlier.
Yeah, so I'm worried they're going to cop some big losses in the run home.
But I think you can mitigate. I mean, I think if you can excuse them for that if they've just got the longest injury list in the competition. But I think the actual effort, we're seeing now a growth.
And that's what we need. The seeing part is most important. When we watch games with West Coast for the rest of the year, the scoreboard isn't as important as what we're seeing from an effort perspective on the field. What the fans need to see is going, oh, my team's definitely having a crack here the entire time. They're throwing themselves at the contest. They are trying hard from the moment the game starts to the moment the game ends. And we haven't seen that in recent years, so the effort waned. So regardless of what the scoreboard says, if you go, my team's having a crack, they just don't have the talent, then I reckon you can live with that because they don't have the talent right now. If Jerry McGovern doesn't play again for the rest of the year and may not play ever again, and if Waterman doesn't get back and Yeo doesn't get back and they get any more injuries to their senior players, they're going to be as young as all get out.
Yeah.
So they're going to be brutal, yeah. But if they're in games until half-time or in games until halfway through the third quarter and then concede a truckload late, you can live with that, I reckon, if you're an Eagles fan. You can't live with losing it really early and then just
that's right, and turning the toes up before quarter time.
Yeah.
One player in particular, I thought Sandy Brock. So he leading into the game, it had been 3 weeks he hadn't had a goal kicked on him in a direct matchup, and at the weekend it was Darcy Fogarty, but didn't kick one till late. So he's really shown something. So they found one there.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
They might
and it shows courage to come back after the Jesse Hogan game where he just tore him apart.
And they might find some more because they've had a good history in the mid-season draft in the last few years. I think Jack Hutchinson, Ryan Marich are players who've been picked up and have gone straight in. So tomorrow night, there's the mid-season draft. There's some really interesting choices for clubs to make. Essendon may pick up as many as 4. Amazing stat there, your boys. 10 players, 190 centimetres or more, all injured. So they're looking at a couple of ruckmen. Todd Goldstein's not going to be able to get it done for the entirety of the year. So Lachlan Blackerston, Ollie Eastland here locally, as well as some others. The Eagles, interesting too. Do they put Waterman on the inactive list? Dom Sheed is, so they'll pick up at least one. We're told they're looking at Tom McCarthy at the Richmond, plays for VFL for Richmond, running half back, and Milan Murdoch again might be looked at, the East Fremantle player. So I think running half back to me, that's a bit of a tick for West Coast.
Yep,
and probably I think some ruck. They'd probably also be looking at some ruck depth as well.
Well, what are your thoughts on whether if Jake Waterman's a chance to play, say, the last 3 games of the year?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they're better off trying to get him back for those last 3 or making him inactive and going and getting another mature age rookie through this mid-season draft?
What would be the point of playing the last 3 games? You've had some shoulder surgery. I'd give him a little bit longer to get it right. We know what Jake Waterman's going to do. He was All-Australian last year. But I think you have a look at someone. If he's only able to get back for the last 3, what would be the point? Have a look at someone else. You might just find a golden nugget in there. That would be my approach to it.
Yeah, because it's interesting because he's not the mid-range guy who's hurt who you go, oh, well, we can afford to miss him at the end of the year. Whereas I sort of look and go, geez, having Jake, by the end of the year, they could be in some strife still with more injuries or with the bottom falling out of it just due to them not being very experienced and not very good. Would his return later on in the year be really influential and help them to finish the year strongly, or would seeing someone for this period of time be more important? It's a really tough decision to make on 2 days when you're looking at it and going, we now have to decide who to bring in. You know what I really like? People bag the mid-season draft saying, oh, there's state league clubs out there right now who have done everything to get themselves into a position to win a flag, and their best player is going to be taken from them. I view it totally differently. I think this is such a wonderful opportunity for some players who last weekend wouldn't have thought they're going to get drafted. A couple of injuries happened to a couple of teams, and now they're going to be AFL footballers and might play this weekend. It's amazing.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's one of the fairy tales of the AFL. So I think father-son still is. I think just dragging a player out of the Waffle or the Sandful or the VFL mid-season and giving them an opportunity to play, I think it's a great storyline. I do think that there should be greater compensation for the clubs losing those players. So I think that's the one area the AFL could have a really hard look at it. For example, I don't think Parfitt will go, but if he was to leave the Perth Demons in the Waffle this week, that would really hurt them. You know, they're mounting something here. So I just think greater compensation. Now, how that plays out, is it players from somewhere else? I don't know, but I'd like them to look at that.
I think long term, the Waffle could sell it a lot better than what they currently do. I don't think they sell the right message around the mid-season draft. So in Victoria, you can be playing for the East Doncaster Football Club, my old stomping ground, or the Ringwood Football Club, your ground. North Ringwood, sorry. Yeah. And you can be drafted from suburban footy. You can't be drafted from suburban or country football in WA. You can only be drafted from the Waffle. Yeah. And we see so many years where players go, you know what, I think I'm done. I'm 24. I'm going to go and play country footy and make a poultice. I'm going to take the cash that's being thrown at me, and I'm not going to play Waffle anymore. You are ending your AFL prospects by doing so. I'd be selling to as many players as possible, stay in the State League, stay playing Waffle, because midway through the year, anything could happen, and you could get picked up just like Milan Murdoch might, or just like Ryan Marrick did last year from out in Victoria, or to go through the names of players who've been picked up in the past. There are opportunities for you if you're playing in the Waffle, and that will be the reward for the Waffle clubs. Yes, you might lose that player, but you're getting other players to sign because of the dream being alive by staying here, as opposed to going and playing country footy and ending it.
What about a mid-season trade?
So having seen the way the basketball fraternity has blown up over Bryce Cotton moving to the Adelaide 36ers,
I wasn't going to mention Bryce Cotton. So.
Having seen how Luka Doncic's move to LA during the year as well, that's the industry we are in is one of hope and change, and players are now more valuable to leagues by wanting to move than they are by staying, because it creates hype and it creates headlines and it creates hope. So I think it's going to come in. And I think players are just going to have to accept that they are earning enough money now compared to the rest of the public that if you're required to move, you're required to move.
So I'm just pulling a name out of a hat here, but I just imagine if just say Ned Reeves was available, just say Hawthorn could do a deal with Essendon right now. You don't reckon Essendon would jump at the opportunity to get a Ned Reeves to that club?
Yeah, absolutely. And imagine this scenario.
And possibly Hawthorn could take 190 centimetre forward from Essendon, because the Hawthorn need key position players.
Well, more of imagine right now if Hawthorn and Brisbane, who are both into Oscar Allen, were both coming to West Coast saying, we want to win a flag. We think we can win the flag right now. Hawthorn have dropped to 6th on the ladder, Brisbane are 2nd at the moment. So they all go, you know what, that could be the difference right now between us winning or not. So instead of the end of the year when you're going, how will we be in 2026? We'll give you this amount of picks. Suddenly you're prepared to give a lot more picks right now because you can see that you are 10 or 12 weeks away from a final series, and this is what you're prepared to do. And I think we would see better value for the struggling team that we will later on in the year.
What about the argument that you've got a 24, 25-year-old Victorian, he's got a job, he's got kids, unlikely to move across the country to Western Australia, much more likely to agree to move to another Victorian club because it's not going to disrupt his family, it's not going to disrupt his occupation. It does work against WA clubs.
It does. And the problem with that, and the reason that is the case, is because players have to agree. Whereas Luka Doncic didn't have to agree to move to LA. He was told you're required to move there because the rules say...
Bit more coin involved, though, I think, for him.
Yeah, but if you're earning a certain amount of money, if you're earning $400,000, $500,000 per year, as opposed to the $150,000, $200,000, those players should be required to move. If that's the deal that's being done, you signed a contract. At a certain point, you should be able to be traded no matter what when you are being paid a certain amount of money. And these guys are all earning good coin. And if a club wants to trade you, they don't want you. So you're better off going and getting an extra year or two from a club that does want you, I would argue. And that'd be the conversation I'd be having at home. Hey, my club wants me to move. Am I going to have a contract in a year's time? This other team's offering me 3 years all of a sudden. Security is right there. I think mid-season trading would allow that to happen, and it's a little bit different to what it would with end-of-season trading. It'd certainly create the headlines and the hype and the hope, as we just said. So I think it's inevitable.
I agree with you. It's
come in.
absolutely inevitable. It's going to happen. Did you have to Google the term Nepo baby at the weekend?
I had a laugh.
Then
I thought, this is going to blow up.
No, I Googled it. I thought I knew what it meant, but I had to Google it anyway. Ross Lyon, he's peddling St Kilda's line. I mean, clearly they're really big on changes, particularly with Tasmania coming in, so that you can see what he's doing. I agree. I thought straight away, this is and he knew it would blow it up. I mean, there was a lot of humour behind it, but I think he knew. He's been around long enough to know that would have impact. It has had impact. So St Kilda has actually got its message across. I thought it was interesting, Damien Hardwick's response too. Look after your own backyard. There's only 13,000 here.
It's a great response.
Not a bad call. And I just did hear some comment on one of the footy shows over the weekend that perhaps it's just never a good look with these crowd numbers at bigger venues. So maybe we do look at specific fixtures and think, well, why can't we play it at Moorabbin, for example, where you'll have a full house, or other venues? It's worth
facilities aren't great at Moorabbin
for one-offs. I think.
Yeah, you need to build everything up and to make sure that the facilities for the players are good, the facilities for the coaches.
I think they're pretty good now.
And then you need facilities for the fans as well who are going to games. If you're going to get 15,000, 20,000 people, or 13,000, whatever it was at Moorabbin, you're going to need to have enough food. And
I think you could
stuff.
do enough. If it's one game a year, I think you could get the infrastructure in there. By the way, facilities for the coaches, they're not that flash at the major venues. God, there's a phone breaking down every second week. So
yeah, I do find it interesting. Like, everyone's in it for themselves, no matter what.
Yeah.
Right. Right now, St Kilda's greatest players in the last 30 years all had daughters. That's just the reality. They were unlucky. All these kids, all these blokes didn't have boys, so they can't have father-son selections.
I'll put my hand up. I think the Hawks have been.
But last year, St Kilda had access to 2 father-son picks who just weren't good enough. That was just the reality. Peter Everett's son and Justin Peckett's son were both available. They were part of the St Kilda father-son academy system, and I think Everett might have been in Queensland playing and part of the academy system up there as well. They just weren't good enough to get drafted. If they had been the number 1 and 2 draft pick, St Kilda would have a vastly different opinion of things. If Gold Coast Academy wasn't producing players, then no one would have a problem with them at the moment. If Josh Dacos and Nick Dacos hadn't become superstars and had been just like the normal father-son picks, like Darcy Danaher wasn't Joe Danaher, but they were both picked under the father-son rule. And we see all the 3 cloaks were all vastly different players as well. People just look at it and say, what's best for me right now? And some of these rules are fantastic.
Yeah, things will turn. You're going to get your run at it. I mean, Noah Anderson was traded out by Alan Joyce at Hawthorn on 99 games.
Noah Anderson's dad.
Dean Anderson was traded out on 99 games. So
otherwise he could
plays
be a Hawk.
one more Noah as a Hawk. Which
I just think that it's dangerous to tear down the father-son rule, I think, when you don't know. Everyone's got the same amount of luck. Like, you've all got a similar amount of players who have played 100 games. They're all going to have kids. Some of them will be boys. Some of them will be girls. Some of them will be talented. Some of them won't be. Like, Gary Ablett Jr. was a vastly better player than Nathan Ablett. It does come down to a lot of luck. You do have to put time and money into your father-son academy. But I do think that by saying let's get rid of the romanticism of the game because some people are really good.
Oh, no, I'm not for that.
I don't like that. Let's got to put a better system in place for making sure these guys are recruited for the value that they are worth when they're drafted.
By the way, early call, but congratulations to Mitch Duncan, by the way, on playing this round for the weekend. His son was out in the ground before the game, either side of the body, looked pretty good. So there could be another one for Geelong. Just on the mid-season draft, there is some gold out there. I did mention Marich and Hutchinson at West Coast, but at Collingwood, Ned Long, a player that Hawthorn discarded, who'd be pretty handy at Hawthorn at the moment, by the way, with Will Day out, picked him up in last year's mid-season draft, has become integral to that side. He's really important to them.
Yeah, if you find the right guy at the right time to fit the need that you want, and that's an example, like, great, in he comes and establishes himself a career. Noble, who went to Collingwood from Noble Park, I think he was playing suburban footy, now playing really good footy on the Gold Coast as well. And Massimo D'Ambrosio is another one, went to Essendon, now at Hawthorn, doing really well. So there are examples. Marlon Pickett was the dream come true. from South Freo, goes to Richmond, plays in the flag. So these dreams can happen. And tomorrow we will find out which players' dreams come true. Someone will be working in an office. Someone will be working on a plumbing site or a building site. Someone will be, someone working at Coles or something like that, and they'll get a phone call saying, congratulations, you are an AFL player. And that is awesome.
So some of the other results over the weekend, so we mentioned Gold Coast, but Gold Coast now, sitting beautifully, played one game fewer. Look, in prime position to at least get 2 home finals, and from there anything's possible. They could be playing in a grand final this year.
And Damien Hardwick said it when he got the job.
The premiership side
80% of this premiership team is sitting in this room right now. They're looking amazing.
They are. Melbourne's making a bit of a run at it, though. What do you make of Cozzy Pickett's form over the last couple of weeks? I mean, the last weekend, what did he kick? 5-4, 20-odd possessions. I mean,
crazy.
there's only 4 players have done that this year, 20-plus and 5 goals, and he's 2 of them.
Yep, get your dynamic players around the ball as much as possible. Blokes who can win the ball and score. If you got those guys, quick, can win the ball and score, and your entire game will change. And they're scoring. That's the most important thing for them at the moment. Like, everywhere you look with Melbourne, so it was 19 goals, 17, 36 scoring shots. Like, that's a lot of scoring shots in a game of footy, especially in modern footy. So, no, they're coming with a rush, and it's because they're prepared to attack and take the game on. And the days of let's stop the opposition from scoring and let's try to win 60-70, well, they're over.
Yeah. I think it's not just Cozzy, obviously. Max Gawn's been in great form. Clayton Oliver's rediscovered his form. Petraka's come back now. Melksham's been he's always gives them 100% effort, but he's risen a level this year. Turner's gone into the back half after starting as a forward. So they're doing a lot of things right, Melbourne, and they were zipping 5. So we've seen in recent years, Brisbane last year, Hawthorn last year. Maybe this is the year of the example. Maybe it's Melbourne this year that sort of start horribly and finish with a flourish and sort of make a bit of an impact in September.
Teams now believe that it's possible because they've seen 2 other teams finish outside the top 4.
100%.
So if you get through to the bottom 4 of the 8, they now think we could actually challenge for a flag because we've seen other teams do it.
So my boys got a bit of an audit at the weekend. I thought they were good the week before. No shame losing to Brisbane, but 18-plus contested possessions, 17 clearances. That's where Hawthorn's at the moment. They would love to – they're the reverse of Carlton. Carlton, the contested game, the clearance game, they've got that on tap, but it's the transition game they don't have. So Hawthorn is the other way around. So I think Hawthorn has a bit of work to do, but certainly wouldn't write them off just yet. Carlton, I think, 4 and 7, just stop to a grinding hold at 3/4 time.
Yep, classic example of a team that has a lot of players who are the exact same player. Good players, but they're all doing the exact same role.
GWS, really frustrating. I pick them, I don't pick them, they win, they lose. They're really hard to get a handle on at the moment. But congratulations to Toby Green, 250 games. Did you see the pre-game footage with James Hird?
I didn't see pre-game.
So grew up in the same street. Used to knock on his door to get him to drag Hirdy out to play a game of street cricket. So Hird was rolled in. Of course, Kevin Sheedy was there. Remember Sheedy's effusive words on Toby Green when he played in his first season there, saying he's going to be a champion. He was right. But James Hird spoke really well about the sort of player he likes, and Toby Green's one of them.
Yeah, I think everyone would like to have a Toby Green in your team. He can go into the midfield in spurts. He was a midfielder when he started. He can mark above his head. He can win the ball at ground level. He's combative and he kicks goals. You need someone like that who's a bit of a lad and a bit aggressive in your team to just bring out the spark that everyone needs to win a game of footy.
While I'm at it, I should mention that as a proud major sponsor of the Fremantle Football Club, Woodside has accepted the challenge of supporting local footy at all levels, from grassroots to greatness, so it can thrive throughout WA. Woodside, Australia's leading energy company. I want to mention your boys, Cod. Angus Clark, debut, 3 goals in the first half. And the Rising Star nominee for this week.
Yeah, it was exciting. It was really exciting to see what he did, and his family in the grandstand. Yeah, that's just the sort of stuff.
As the parents watching that, you're thinking like, I did not expect this.
No, you turn up hoping your kid gets a kick. Yeah. And then he kicks a goal, and you're, oh, that's fun.
Yeah,
and then he kicks 2, and you're like, oh. And then he kicks 3. You're like, yeah, it's another example. Like, anything can happen in AFL footy. Like, if Essendon didn't have injuries, he's not playing, and now he's played and kicked 3.
Geelong v Western Bulldogs. I thought the Dogs were just not clean enough. They probably should have won the game. Did they do enough to get under Bailey Smith's skin, or are they waiting for bigger games later in the year?
Yeah, it's interesting.
Didn't work. I mean, he was best player out there.
Yeah,
really.
Bailey Smith was really nervous. He said post-game he was nervous. They didn't make him nervous, though. They didn't do anything really to annoy him in any way, shape or form. They just let him play footy. So teams have to work out how to stop Bailey Smith or else he's going to tear you apart. The hardest part about that game was working out who was who because Geelong had the red in their jumper. My son walked in at one point and went, hang on, when did he change teams? And I'm like, no, it's actually Geelong with their Indigenous jumper has a bit of red in it.
Yeah, it was a bit, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Bulldogs were wearing white, and it was confusing at different points to try to, as your mind sort of went, hang on, the wrong team's playing here. I thought it was a bit bizarre, but it just happened to be the way that both teams' uniforms had been designed.
Cod, favourite time of the week, the Thirsty Camel mailbag. This week's special Corona 2x12 packs for $61.99 a carton. This week we'll be giving away a $50 digital voucher thanks to Thirsty Camel. Get your questions into TheWestSport at wanews.com.au. Please include your mobile number at the bottom of your email as we will send you a digital voucher if you're a weekly winner. A bit of fun this week, Cod, with the mail. This one from Andrew. Hey guys, I saw the footage of that amazing torpedo kick and it got me reminiscing about South Melbourne's former player, Basil Campbell's ability to kick perfectly formed torpedoes in his heyday. Who are the best torpedo kickers you have seen? Well, he's talking about Jordan Enderman playing for Sydney in the VFL. So he's got the ball probably 5-10 metres.
He's in the next suburb. That's where he was.
No, he's just near the D50 arc. Gets the ball, takes a couple of steps. The big torpedo over the top, gets over inside to the forward 50. A couple of bounces through for a goal. So if you haven't seen it, everyone just Google it. It's awesome. And of course, it gets you the first. What's the first one everyone goes to?
Malcolm Blight.
So let's cue some audio here.
Now Blight would have to kick this. Oh, he'd have to kick it 85, 90 metres. But he's going to have a kick, all right. It's not over yet. Not over yet. What drama here at Princes Park. Malcolm Blight, it's a big kick. It's a mammoth kick.
Malcolm Blight, 1976 v Carlton at Princes Park. He was on the point of the centre square and it was a long kick. It did go half post high, but I'm not sure if it's the 100-metre kick everyone talks it up to. Now, Malcolm Blight reckons it grows 5 metres every year.
Yeah, it's amazing how – just the fact it was after the siren, the fact that he hit it so sweet and it went so high. It was an amazing goal. I remember Jaden Hunt playing for Melbourne on the up in Darwin or Alice Springs one year, was about 70 out and got onto one. Mitch Duncan against West Coast was about 70 out after a siren as well.
A lot of Geelong players. Ben Graham, 1999, Spiral from fullback Port Adelaide. That probably did go 100 metres. That was over the centre square. Gary
Lyon kicked a cracker one day for the D's. I still remember Dustin Fletcher on the run with a torp from near the centre circle one time. And David Wirapunda was unbelievable kicking out from the back line. So was Shannon Herm. When they got onto a torp, it just kept on going and going and going.
Michael Tuck as well. You'd remember him when he got onto a torpedo. It'd go forever. I remember a Richmond player who was a defender. I reckon he played in the 82 grand final off the bench. Name was Bruce Dempany. I can recall him. I Googled it today. I couldn't find anything, but I'm certain. Kick one from full back, which is gone. It was basically the Ben Graham kick of its day in the early 80s. It was amazing stuff. And they tell me that Fred Fanning, who holds the record for goals in a game, 18 goals in a game, and of course the 150 in a season, could roost it over 100 metres, they reckon. So
over 100
we will
metres.
never know.
I do remember Peter Philandia played for Essendon in Sydney, 1990 night grand final. Kicked one from about 60
He's only
to
a
the
little
top as well.
fella?
Only a little fella. Famous for other things other than kicking the ball. Unfortunately, if you just Google him, you'll understand what I'm talking about an offence that he did in the VFL one time. Got a bit hungry, but not hungry for the ball, or maybe the wrong ball. I won't say any more. That was an interesting one. But, yeah, he kicked the ball miles in that night grand final in 1990.
Another fun one from Michelle. G'day, team. Is it time to announce a headband team of the week? And she signs off the Flying Doorman and Big Carl Ditterich. Well, I love the idea. Bailey Smith's probably the most Camden McIntosh at the moment with that bright yellow headband on the bald scone.
I love the fact that this is becoming a thing. I love the fact that I thought it was stupid initially when I saw Camden McIntosh wearing the yellow and the black ones differently each week. I think this is marketing genius now. If the AFL can come out and brand these for kids will wear them left, right, and centre. They'll be all over the shop. I think it's going to be more like the Bailey Smith one. It'll make it a bit cooler looking because of the Camden McIntosh
What's happened
one.
to Jaden Hunt's headband?
I'm assuming that maybe his hair's a little bit shorter than what it was at some point.
Yeah.
I reckon it was to keep his hair out of his eyes, so maybe it isn't as big an issue for him anymore.
If he's listening, get it back. I prefer
kids will start wearing them if you give them ones that look good. And the Camden McIntosh one isn't cool enough to look good.
That's just the old-fashioned sweatband.
When Pat Cash won Wimbledon, everyone put on a headband. Because
Who Dares wins one. 87. You know what, Cod? I'm glad you brought that up. I bought one in early 1988 after he won the 87 Wimbledon final with that on. I still have it.
Do you now?
And not only do I still have it, but I wear it in every marathon I run in.
Really?
The same Pat Cash headband.
So with the checks on it?
Yep. It's been and I remember having it. I had it on a golf trip once, and my mate was going to throw it out the window, and I was literally in tears. I begged him not to, and he didn't. But I put it away in a special place. It only ever comes out when I run a marathon.
And does it make you run faster?
I believe so.
Yeah, because you're giving the Pat Cash elements of it, and he's a hawk as well. So
he is a hawk. No.
I'll tell you, stupid things like that. So 1993 preliminary final. First goal of the third quarter, I'm sitting there in the Ponsford stand with a mate, and someone threw a streamer, and it didn't unfurl. It just landed in our lap, and he said, "We're going to throw this when we get in front." And we were down by 40-odd points at the time, and he forgot to throw it when we hit the front, and he's still got that streamer rolled up, sitting at home on his desk. He's kept it for 30-odd years. You remember, you do silly things, but they become sentimental to you. Like, it's just a streamer. That's just a headband. If you lose it, you'll be gutted.
Yeah, but I can wear that headband, and I still do. I remember we were at Princes Park one day, and back in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s, people used to tear up phone books and throw them.
Yes.
Right? Like confetti. And I was sitting in the Heatley stand at Princes Park with my friend David Jones, who lived at 119 Baringa Road, Park Orchards. And they were throwing the phone.
Go and knock on the door, someone, if you're over there now.
No, they were throwing it, and he's caught a bit of phone book, and he's looked at it, and it's his address.
No.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. How bizarre is that?
Park Orchards. Kevin Sheedy from Park Orchards. John Farnham lived in Park Orchards.
Yeah, literally just up the road, as was Robert Walls. The late, great Robert Walls all lived in the same area. So just back on the headbands, of course, Bruce Dool was the most famous. That blue, that Carlton headband he wore is now in the Australian Sporting Museum. Had it ripped off his head by
Cameron Clayton.
Yes.
And thrown into the crowd by?
Tony
Bahaja.
Oh, right.
And then Bahaja looked around and went, "Oh, hang on, they're coming for me."
Well, I'll tell you who wore a headband that was quite prominent. No one was ever going to rip it off. It was Carl Dietrich.
Yes,
because he was a big, tough man. I remember his last game for Melbourne. Just went round, just hammering blokes because he knew, what are they going to do? Suspend me? It's my last game.
Certain people can just do whatever they want, really, can't they? Because if you wear, no matter what you wear, if you're the toughest person on the field, you can do whatever you want and no one will touch you.
So last Thursday, Mitch went on a bit of a rant about insufficient intent. So we've got Paul from Kalgoorlie mailing us saying, "Thank you, spot on. Barristers and solicitors spent days in a court of law establishing intent. We expect an umpire to judge intent in an instant. Let's make out," he's saying that it's too hard to, "let's make it out of bounds definitive. Either last player who touches the ball, other side gets a free, or throw the ball in." Cheers, Paul. I reckon it's going to be, it'll come in, but I think it'll be last kick or last handball. It won't be last touch.
Can't be last touch, no.
Too tough. Last touch, you just cannon the ball into someone and, get the free kick. So I think last kick or last touch will come in.
Yeah. And the reality is they've already made it very, very clear. If you choose to soccer the ball in any circumstances rather than pick it up and it goes out of bounds, that will be considered your intent wasn't to control the ball. You kicked it off the ground, so that will be deliberate. If you have chosen to kick the ball towards the boundary line when you could have gone inboard, in towards the corridor, they will also make that deliberate. And if you choose to go in the line instead of going inboard and it bounces out, then they'll make that deliberate as well. So they're saying your intent wasn't to go towards the corridor. So I think you can read it pretty well now. You just have to accept that you got to kick it to a teammate.
Is
And
it just between the arcs only, perhaps?
Yeah, but I also think a lot of the time, I think players are living with the decision. They're going, I'm definitely kicking this as far away from the opposition's goal as I can. I've got no one to give it to. I'm going wide, and I'll concede the free kick out there. And they're quite happily doing it rather than kicking it back to the opposition. And sometimes it's a tactic just to waste some time and let everyone set back up.
I actually like it. I think the umpires get it 99% right.
Yep, it's pretty easy now.
And I think it's added a layer of fear to the game. It's almost like the ball.
Yes.
I love it when the umpires, they're very demonstrative, Cobb, when they point the arm out. Or they do the underarm.
Yep.
I think it's terrific.
Because one of the problems with the way holding the ball has been interpreted now is it's so quick. It used to be there'd be one tackle, everyone would be like, ball! And the umpire would go, play on.
First 10 seconds of a grand final every
Then someone
year,
picks up, ball. Then finally it'd be the third or fourth one, and it'd be, ball! The umpire would pause, pay the free kick, and everyone would be like, yes! That's deliberate now.
Yeah, imagine someone who doesn't follow the game coming to a game and hearing that for the first time on the grand final day. It's one of the great things about our sport. Please
fantastic.
never ever get rid of that. We have been brought to you by Tab Touch. Got the touch? Download the Tab Touch app today. Imagine what you could be buying instead for free and confidential support. Visit gamblinghelponline.org.au. Remember, you can watch or listen to this podcast on YouTube Music. Leave us a rating and a review, and don't forget to follow this podcast so you don't miss an episode. Cod, thank you once again.
Look forward to just chatting again next week.